I have a large family. Mostly aunts and female cousins aside from mom, stepmom, stepsister and grandmother. I don't know how to say this, but all those women I mentioned above are into teasing and joking. They've formed a unit, which I admit is kind of toxic. And they'd tease and roast every new woman that enters the family by marriage by setting up tests to see if they deserve to be part of the family, or roast their looks and styles to the point of breaking confidence and self-esteem down. Then after a few months of teasing, they'd announce that they've finally welcomed them into the family. The newest member would join in on the teasing too, which is crazy, as my dad says. When I first introduced my then girlfriend, now wife, I made it clear that I didn't want any of the women in the unit to come at her or harass her, not even with a single word. They went behind my back and roasted her looks and job, and I discovered they've been doing it on Facebook. I had them apologize one by one after they gave the "we're just testing the water to see if she's capable to be part of the family" excuse. They didn't want to apologize, but once I said I wouldn't invite any of the unit unless they apologize, including my mom, everyone immediately apologized and brought gifts for my wife. My wedding was 2 weeks ago. There was talk about the women in the family wanting to pull a prank on my wife by wearing white and called it the ultimate test to see how my wife react. My brother warned me, so I announced that if any one of them showed up in white, I'd have them kicked out, including mom. They said this wasn't true and they'd never do such thing. But they showed up to my wedding one by one wearing white dresses, and each and every one of them was told to leave after they tried giving excuses by either making scenes or getting the men involved. The senior women of the unit, who are mom and aunts, also showed up in white but refused to leave. I threatened to take harsher action and mom was pissed, telling me to step aside, but I didn't let her in. I had her leave while the men in the family were watching stunned. Dad was on my side and supported me a lot. I felt absolutely awful because my wedding was being interrupted by them making scenes. My wife was hurt beyond measure, but the women in the family were pissed. My cousin blasted me on social media later, saying I excluded all the women from the wedding because my wife was so insecure she couldn't handle another woman's presence at her wedding. I had an argument with them and mom berated me, saying it was supposed to be a prank, but I said they were taking it too far. Mom said I took it too far by kicking them out because they were trying to get reaction from my wife to see if she was one of those Bridzillas and were going to change soon as prank was over, but I ruined my own and entire wedding by reacting so aggressively. I stopped talking after she said I had to bring my wife and apologize. I haven't seen the lot of them in 2 weeks and they've excluded me from everything. I just want to explain that, this has been happening for years. The men in the family are split on this behavior. Some of them encourage it, like my uncle and my cousin's husbands. One is now an ex, and some are against it, like me and my dad and brother. The women claim that there's nothing hurtful in what they do because they claim they're just looking out for us men, and that their goal, ultimately, is to make sure the women who enter the family are decent. My dad always ends up arguing with my mom and grandmother, since they're the ones who started this whole thing with their behavior and attitude towards other women. And I'm not sure if I should mention this, but my male cousin, who's a middle schooler, said he'd make sure to leave the country before even meeting any woman because of this, and it made me chuckle. Also, the dresses they showed up in were simple white dresses, nothing over the top, but still were white dresses. I realized they went ahead with their plans even after I stated what I'd do in that case. I am a 36 years old male. My wife passed away 2 years ago. I have an 11-year-old son named Sean. I'm doing okay with money. I have a stable income and support system. I have a friend named Kate. We've been together since we were kids. She's like a sister to me, although she tends to boss me around. She's introduced me to her female friends, hoping that I'll settle down again. I told her I have other priorities and I'm required to focus on Sean and his health. He's diabetes. Kate thinks there's something wrong with me, but not everyone's circumstance is the same. I started noticing a pattern in her behavior after she introduced me to a friend of hers. She'd tell me to leave Sean at home when we hang out and meet her friends. She'd tell me to take down any pictures that have my son and wife in it because ladies will assume that I'm a single dad or still married, and that'd limit my chances in dating. I told her to knock it off, and she said that she was looking out for my social life, saying I'm ruining it and exhausting myself. I stopped talking to her for days. Then I decided to let it go. She's been insisting on bringing her friend to visit me with other friends. I agreed to have them as guests. Kate suggested I take Sean to stay with a relative since it'll be adult dinner, but I refused. He was comfortable in his home and didn't want to go. Kate was at my place before her friends arrived. I checked on Sean and told him to tell me if he needed anything before he went to sleep. At 12:30, while I was sitting and just starting to chat with Kate's friend while Kate kept blinking at me with a smirk on her face, I got a text message from Sean telling me he wanted to use the bathroom but the door handle was stuck and he couldn't open the door. I went upstairs to check. Kate followed me. I found that the door was actually locked. I was confused. I asked Sean and he said he didn't lock it. I started looking for the key. That's when Kate quietly handed it to me saying she took it. I was stunned. I opened the door for Sean, then I asked her why she locked the door. She said that lied to her friend about me not having kids and didn't want her to see Sean. She said it was no big deal since he was sleeping, but I was furious. I started yelling at her as she kept shushing me. Everyone started leaving after I yelled at Kate and cussed her out for doing this. She blew up after her friend left and said I was an idiot cause most people don't mention kids until after months into dating, and that I didn't deserve her help to move on when she thought I was a decent, sane person. I called her stupid and told her to get out of my house. She told me to wallow in my misery and left. Then her friends kept blaming me for making a scene and treating Kate like that, especially since she cooked dinner and helped a lot. I am a 19-year-old man. On Thursday, a person I had a major crush on in high school, but who rejected me, messaged me out of the blue. She had never contacted me without my contacting her first. And at one point I realized she had had me blocked on social media, and so I found it odd that she was suddenly being friendly. After sending a couple of greetings / questions about how I've been, she said that she was going to have some people over and wanted to know if I would get the beer. The drinking age where we are is 19, and she and the people who were going to chill were all 18. The liquor stores in my area all card. I thought it was silly that my being a month older meant I could buy liquor and they couldn't, and so I said I would love to go. She said, "Thanks, I'll pick you up at 7. 7 o'clock rolled around, and she texted me to say she was in front of my house. I went out dressed and ready to chill with some people, and she drove me to the liquor store. When we got there, I asked what beer she wanted me to get, and she told me to get Budweiser. I hid my disappointment as well as I could, but it was her party, so I went in and bought 2 cases of 24. I got back in the car and said, "Let's party," and she was eerily quiet. I noticed that she wasn't driving towards her neighborhood, but rather back towards mine. I thought she had moved or something, but didn't want to press the issue. When she turned down my street, I finally figured it out. She was being purposefully vague about the invitation because she wanted me to get the beer. But she wanted a way out when she told me I wasn't actually invited in the first place. She stopped in front of my house, leaned over, kissed me on the cheek, and said, "Thanks," in her best voice. I deadpanned her and asked when she was going to tell me I wasn't invited. She feigned surprise and said that she never intended to invite me in the first place. I sat in silence for a long, awkward minute, picked up the beer, and walked towards my front door. She got out of her car and frantically tried to re-invite me to the party, but I told her that what she did was the most humiliating thing that ever happened to me. I opened my front door, slammed it a bit too hard, and came back to my room. My wife and I have been together for 3 years. I have a daughter from my previous marriage. She's 14. I also have a stepson who tends to be rude at times but civil enough around adults. He's 16. He and his stepsister get along well. No arguing. No yelling, even better than most siblings I know, which is great, and it's quite a relief to see them loving and respecting each other. We have 2 bathrooms in the house. My daughter only uses the smaller one, since it's always available, unlike the main bathroom that me, my stepson and wife often use. I've recently received some money and decided to renovate the small bathroom that my daughter uses, since she complained about things needing to be fixed. I started the renovation 2 days ago, while my daughter uses the main bathroom as an alternative. There were no issues until my wife pulled me aside saying my daughter's been leaving period products inside the bathroom, and it wasn't right 'cause my stepson would see them. I asked my wife for more clarification, and turns out my daughter gets rid of her used pads by putting them in the trash can inside the bathroom. I told my wife there was nothing wrong with that, so what's the problem? She gave me a look, called me an ignorant, then dropped it. This morning she looked upset and told me my stepson went inside the bathroom after my daughter got out and probably saw her used pads in the bathroom. I asked if she meant the trash can, and it was confirmed. She then proceeded to tell me to ask my daughter to stop using the main bathroom even though the small one is still in the process of being renovated. I absolutely lost my shit and told her she was making a ridiculously unreasonable demand. Told her it's my daughter's house too. Where is she supposed to go if she can't use both bathrooms? We started arguing back and forth until she said she'd talk to her, but I told her to stop it. She just kept giving me the cold shoulder for hours now, even though my stepson said nothing about this issue as she claims it to be. My wife said she was trying to be a parent, but I treat her as an outsider to my daughter. That's not true. I might have been harsh on her, but in my opinion she wasn't trying to parent, she was being unreasonable. I might be wrong, I just don't see her point. My wife is an incredibly private person, but that doesn't mean she can get others to follow. The trash can we have has a lid. It's a step-on trash can that doesn't require hands. My stepson isn't even aware of what his mom's talking about. He can barely look around, he always has his phone glued to his face, and he doesn't pay attention to anything.